You're standing in complete darkness. The wind outside screams like a living thing, rattling through cracks in the earth above your head. Your breath turns to fog in the freezing air. Around you, 20 bodies pressed together in a space barely large enough to turn around. The smell of smoke, sweat, and salted fish hangs heavy. A single oil lamp flickers, casting dancing shadows on walls made of stone and frozen earth. This is your home. This is how you survive. You are a Viking, and winter has come. The year is 950 AD. You live in what will one day be called Iceland, though right now it's simply called the land of fire and ice. Your settlement sits in a valley carved by ancient glaciers, surrounded by mountains that pierce the sky like the teeth of sleeping giants. For 8 months of the year, this place is manageable. Difficult, yes, but manageable. But for 4 months, from November through February, this land transforms into something else entirely, something that wants you dead. The sun barely rises above the horizon, offering only a few hours of weak, gray light before plunging back into darkness. Temperatures drop to -20, -30 degrees Celsius. The wind doesn't just blow, it hunts, seeking out every gap in your clothing, every weakness in your shelter, every moment of exposed skin. In such conditions, your longhouse, that magnificent structure of timber and turf that serves you so well in summer, becomes a death trap. The constant fires needed to keep warm would consume your entire winter fuel supply in weeks. The smoke would choke you. The cold would seep through every wall, no matter how thick. So your ancestors, those first settlers who arrived here 5 generations ago, developed something different, something that seems to defy every principle of Viking culture. A culture built on sailing, on expansion, on claiming the horizon. They learned to go down, into the earth, into the darkness. The underground shelter, what you call a Vetterheimer, winter home, is a marvel of practical engineering born from pure necessity. Its construction begins in late summer, when the ground is still soft enough to dig, but the harvest is nearly complete. You start by selecting a location carefully. It must be on a slight slope for drainage, away from any natural water channels that might flood during spring thaw. The soil must be dense clay or packed earth, not loose sand that would collapse. Ideally, you want a natural hillside where you can dig horizontally, creating a more stable structure. The excavation is backbreaking work, using iron spades, wooden shovels, and sometimes heated stones to soften frozen layers. Your community digs a rectangular pit, roughly 8 meters long, 5 meters wide, and deep enough that a tall man can stand upright in the center. Every bucket of earth must be hauled out and piled strategically. You'll need it later. The walls are then reinforced with a framework of timber, vertical posts every meter or so, connected by horizontal beams, creating a skeleton that will hold back the weight of the earth. These timbers are precious. Every piece of wood on Iceland must be either imported at great expense or salvaged from driftwood that washes ashore from distant forests. Nothing is wasted. Between the timber framework and the earth walls, you pack layers of turf, those thick mats of grass and roots cut carefully from the ground. The turf serves multiple purposes. It insulates, it prevents erosion of the walls, and it creates a living barrier that actually grows stronger over time as the roots interweave and bind together. The roof is the most critical element. You lay timber rafters across the span, then cover them with birch bark if you have it, then multiple layers of turf, then the earth that was excavated, piled at least half a meter thick. Finally, more turf on top, creating a living roof that from the outside looks like nothing more than a slight rise in the landscape. The entrance is a narrow tunnel, also lined with stone and turf that descends at an angle. This design is intentional. The angled tunnel prevents wind from blowing directly into the shelter, and it creates an airlock effect. Cold air, being denser, sinks and pools in the tunnel rather than entering the main chamber. Inside, the space is divided by function. The central area contains the fire pit, a shallow depression lined with flat stones. Around it, low platforms made of stone and wood serve as sleeping benches. These are covered with layers of sheepskin, wool blankets, and whatever furs you've managed to acquire. The warmest spots, closest to the fire but not so close as to be dangerous, are reserved for children and the elderly. Storage alcoves are dug into the walls, creating natural cold storage for preserved food. The dried fish, smoked mutton, fermented shark, butter sealed in sheep stomachs, barrels of grain, wheels of skyer, everything you need to survive 4 months must fit into these spaces. Ventilation is perhaps the most sophisticated aspect. A central smoke hole allows smoke to escape, but it's designed with a cover that can be adjusted from inside using a pole, allowing you to balance the need for fresh air against heat loss. Too much ventilation and you freeze. Too little and you suffocate from smoke or carbon dioxide buildup. Managing this balance is a constant, delicate task. The entire structure, when complete, is invisible to outsiders. Snow covers the roof, blending it into the landscape. Only the thin wisp of smoke from the ventilation hole betrays human presence below. Living in the Vadheimer requires discipline that borders on ritual. These aren't suggestions. They're laws written in the blood of those who learned them too late. Rule 1. Preserve fuel at all costs. The fire must never go out, but it must also never burn too hot. You burn dried dung, peat, and precious pieces of driftwood in careful rotation. Every family member learns to tend the fire, to read its mood, to know exactly how much fuel will carry it through the night. Running out of fuel in midwinter is a death sentence. Rule 2. Conserve movement. Every action requires energy, and energy requires food. During the deepest winter, when supplies run lowest, you move slowly, deliberately. Children are taught to play quiet games. Adults sit more than they stand. Even conversations are kept low and calm to conserve warmth and energy. Rule 3. Maintain the hierarchy of warmth. Children and pregnant women sleep closest to the fire, then the elderly, then the workers, then the livestock. Yes, your most valuable sheep and goats live in an annex chamber, their body heat contributing to the overall warmth of the shelter, their survival ensuring you have milk, meat, and wool for the next year. Rule 4. Ration everything. Food is distributed in precise portions. Each person knows their allotment. A handful of dried fish, a cup of skyer, a piece of hard bread. Enough to survive, never enough to feel full. Hunger is a constant companion, accepted as the price of spring. Rule 5. Respect the entrance. Every time someone goes out to check on the main longhouse, to retrieve supplies from an above-ground cache, to investigate a noise, the entrance tunnel must be sealed immediately upon their return. Even seconds of open door can drop the interior temperature dramatically. Rule 6. Tend to hygiene within limits. With water scarce and precious, bathing is reduced to minimal washing with snow. Waste is collected in covered vessels and emptied into a designated pit outside during brief trips to the surface. Disease in such close quarters can kill an entire family, so cleanliness, even rudimentary, is enforced strictly. But rules alone don't explain how people survive. How do you maintain sanity when you're pressed together in darkness for months? How do you prevent the space from becoming a tomb of living people? The Vikings developed a culture of the underground, traditions that transform survival into something almost bearable. Stories become currency. Every evening, as the daylight, such as it is, fades completely, the family gathers around the fire for storytelling. These aren't casual entertainments. They're structured performances that have been refined over generations. The elder speaks first, reciting the sagas of gods and heroes. Thor's battle with the Midgard serpent, Odin's sacrifice on Yggdrasil, the burning of Balder, and the coming of Ragnarok. These stories serve multiple purposes. They preserve cultural knowledge that has no written record. They provide moral instruction. They assert identity. We are Vikings, descended from heroes, and we will endure as they endured. Then come the family stories. Your grandfather recounts his voyages, embellishing just enough to make them entertaining without straying into obvious falsehood. Your mother tells of her childhood, of winters past, of relatives long dead who live on through memory. The children learn to tell stories too. It's a survival skill as important as any other. A child who can entertain, who can make others laugh or wonder, contributes to the group's mental survival as surely as a hunter contributes food. Riddles are another constant. They sharpen the mind, provide competition without physical exertion, and teach lateral thinking. What has roots nobody sees is taller than trees. Up it goes, and yet never grows. The answer, a mountain, seems obvious once heard, but finding it requires the mind to work, to stay active, to resist the numbing effects of monotony. Music fills the space when words cannot. Simple instruments, bone flutes, skin drums, the human voice, create rhythms and melodies that somehow make the darkness less oppressive. Work songs for the tedious tasks of maintaining the fire and preparing food. Lullabies for children who cry from cold and hunger. Mourning songs for those who didn't survive previous winters. Crafts continue even in the limited light. The women spin wool, turning it into thread into cloth. It's meditative work, productive but not exhausting. The men carve bone and wood, creating tools, ornaments, game pieces. These objects have value, certainly, but the real value is in the activity itself. The focus required, the sense of accomplishment, the passage of time made tangible. What makes the Wetterheimer system work isn't just engineering or discipline. It's a set of invisible strengths, social technologies as sophisticated as any physical structure. First, radical equality in suffering. In the underground shelter, social hierarchies flatten. The Jarl and the Thrall still exist, but in the darkness, breathing the same smoky air, eating the same rations, sleeping on the same hard benches, those distinctions blur. Everyone is cold, everyone is hungry, everyone is bored. This shared suffering creates bonds that transcend summer status. A story told by a thrall can be just as valuable as one told by a free man. A joke from a child can lift spirits as surely as wisdom from an elder. In the Wetterheimer, your value is measured not by your summer accomplishments, but by your contribution to collective survival. Second, enforced cooperation. In the summer world, conflicts can be resolved through distance. Don't like your neighbor? Live on the other side of the valley, but in the underground shelter, there is no distance. Conflict is existential threat, a fight that disrupts the group, that breaks the discipline of rationing or fire tending, can kill everyone. So Vikings developed elaborate conflict resolution customs. Disputes are aired openly, but calmly. The group acts as judge. Punishments are measured. Extra work duties, reduced rations, position farther from the fire. Exile from the shelter is possible but rarely necessary because everyone understands it means death. Third, the inversion of time. In summer, time is measured by the sun's movement, by tasks completed, by visible progress. But underground, in near total darkness, time becomes elastic and strange. A day might feel like a week. A week might pass in what seems like hours. The Vikings adapted by creating artificial time structures. Daily rituals mark the passage. Morning prayer, fire tending, first meal, story time, second meal, evening prayer, sleep. These rituals aren't just religious or practical. They're anchors in the darkness, fixed points that prevent time from dissolving completely. Fourth, anticipatory gratitude. You might think that months in darkness would breed resentment, despair, rage against the cruelty of existence, and sometimes it does. But more often, it breeds something unexpected. Profound appreciation for small pleasures. The taste of smoked fish becomes something to savor rather than simply consume. The warmth of a wool blanket is recognized as the miracle it is. The laugh of a child cuts through the gloom like sunlight. By stripping away comfort, the shelter teaches the luxury of basics. When spring finally comes, when you emerge from the earth into the light, you don't take summer for granted. You've earned it. Every green blade of grass, every bird song, every breath of warm air feels like resurrection. But beneath these strengths, cracks form. Weaknesses that aren't obvious at first, but that grow like ice and stone, splitting what seems solid. The most obvious is disease. Despite all efforts at hygiene, the close quarters make illness inevitable. A cough becomes pneumonia, a minor infection becomes sepsis, and in the darkness, with no sunlight to provide vitamin D, with diet limited to preserved foods lacking fresh vegetables, immune systems weaken steadily. The young and old die first. A grandmother succumbs to what started as a cold. An infant born in autumn doesn't survive to see spring. The bodies can't be buried, the ground is frozen solid, so they're wrapped in cloth and stored in the coldest part of the shelter, awaiting thaw. Living with corpses would seem horrifying to outsiders, but for Vikings in the Vetterheimer, it's normal. The dead are still family. They'll be buried properly when possible. For now, they wait, patient and cold. Second weakness, psychological strain, the darkness, the confinement, the monotony. They erode the mind in ways that aren't always visible. Some people develop what you might call seasonal depression. They stop speaking, stop eating, stop caring whether they live or die. The group tries to rally around them to pull them back from the edge, but it doesn't always work. Others develop claustrophobia that they never experienced before. The walls seem to press in, the ceiling seems to lower. They become convinced they're being buried alive. In extreme cases, they try to flee into the winter night and have to be restrained for their own survival. Tensions rise in other ways. Marriages strained by summer conflicts crack under winter pressure. Old grudges, suppressed during harvest and raiding season, surface in the darkness. Someone hoards food. Someone neglects their fire-tending duty. Someone's story offends someone else's honor. Third weakness, resource miscalculation. Despite generations of experience, sometimes you simply get it wrong. The winter is longer than expected. The food runs out, the fuel supply dwindles, and you're faced with impossible choices. Do you slaughter the livestock early, ensuring meat now but losing milk and wool production for next year? Do you reduce rations further, pushing everyone closer to starvation? Do you send your strongest member out into the killing cold to try to reach a neighboring shelter and beg for supplies, knowing they'll likely die in the attempt? Fourth weakness, the dependency trap. The Vetterheimer system works, but it creates profound vulnerability. You survive winter, yes, but at the cost of becoming completely dependent on this specific survival method. You can't leave. You can't adapt. You're locked into the cycle. If something disrupts the system, if a shelter collapses, if disease wipes out the knowledge keepers, if a particularly harsh winter destroys multiple years of stored supplies, there's no backup plan. The specialization that makes you so good at surviving this specific challenge makes you fragile against anything unexpected. And the unexpected is coming. You don't know it yet, but the climate is changing. The medieval warm period, which made Iceland settlement possible in the first place, is beginning to end. The Little Ice Age is approaching, bringing winters longer and harsher than anything in living memory. The signs are subtle at first. This winter seems a bit colder than last. The ice on the lake seems a bit thicker. The spring thaw comes a week later than usual. But over years, over decades, the pattern becomes undeniable. The summers shorten, the winters lengthen. The growing season contracts. The grass that feeds your livestock doesn't grow as thick. The fish that saved your ancestors become harder to catch as ocean temperatures shift. Your storage calculations, refined over 5 generations, are suddenly inadequate. The shelter that worked for 4 months now needs to sustain you for 5, then 6, and you begin to understand something terrible. You've optimized for a world that no longer exists. The year is 1125 AD. You are 13 years old, and this is your 4th winter in the Vetterheimer. The previous 3 were hard but manageable. This one is different from the first day. October brings snow that doesn't melt. November brings cold that makes the previous year seem mild. By December, when your family retreats underground, you know something is wrong. The food stores that should be abundant seem barely adequate. The fuel pile that should last until March looks disturbingly small. Your father says nothing, but you see the calculations in his eyes every time he tends the fire. January passes in the usual way. Hungry, cold, dark, but survivable. February brings the first true test. The morning ration is reduced, not by much, just a bit less fish, a bit less grain. But everyone notices. No one complains. Complaining doesn't create food. March arrives, and normally this is when hope returns. The days should be getting longer. The worst should be behind you. But this year, the cold doesn't break. The snow keeps falling. And on March 7th, your grandfather, the keeper of the family's stories, the one who remembered the old ways, begins to cough. Within 3 days, he's burning with fever. Within a week, he's dead. Your family wraps his body and places it with the others in the cold storage. You've lost relatives before, but grandfather was different. He was the memory. And now whole sections of family history are gone. Stories that will never be told again. Wisdom that will never be passed on. March 15th. The rations are cut again. You're eating one meal a day now, and it's barely enough to quiet the gnawing in your stomach. Your little sister cries from hunger until your mother gives her part of her own ration. You notice your father doing the same for your mother when he thinks no one is watching. The fire burns lower now. The temperature in the shelter drops. You sleep in your clothes under every blanket the family owns, pressed against your siblings for warmth. March 20th. Spring equinox. The day should be equal to the night, but when your father ventures outside to check conditions, he returns shaking his head. The world above is still locked in winter. The snow is waist deep. The wind would kill anyone who tried to travel to another settlement for help. You're trapped, and the supplies are running out. March 25th. Your mother announces that the adults will fast for 2 days to stretch the children's rations. You want to argue, but the look in her eyes silences you. This isn't up for debate. March 28th. The sheep in the livestock chamber stops giving milk. She's as starved as you are, her ribs visible through her wool. Your father makes the decision to slaughter her. The meat will feed the family for a week, maybe more. The loss of milk is irrelevant if you don't survive to need it. The killing happens in the shelter. There's nowhere else to do it. The blood is caught carefully in a bowl. Blood sausage can be made, nothing wasted. The butchering is efficient, practiced. Your mother divides the meat precisely, hanging some to dry in the coolest part of the shelter, cooking some immediately. That night, you eat fresh meat for the first time in months. It's the best and worst meal of your life. Best because your stomach is finally briefly full. Worst because you know what it represents. The beginning of the end of your resources, April 1st. Traditionally, this is when families emerge from the Vaterheimer, when the spring planting begins. But the world above is still frozen. You're in uncharted territory now, surviving on rapidly dwindling supplies with no knowledge of when it will end. April 5th. The last of the grain runs out. You're living on dried fish, sheep meat, and melted snow. The fire is fed with the last of the peat, mixed with pieces of broken furniture to make it last longer. Your mother begins burning her wool spindles. Your father burns his carving tools. Objects that took months to create, that represented trade value and family heritage, are converted into a few hours of heat. April 10th. Your little brother, only 4 years old, becomes sick. Same fever that took grandfather. Your mother tends to him constantly, but everyone knows the truth. Weakened by months of inadequate nutrition, his body has nothing left to fight with. He dies on April 13th. Your mother doesn't cry. There are no tears left. She wraps him carefully and places him with the others. April 15th. The family holds a meeting. It's time to face the reality. You're going to run out of food before spring arrives. Your father suggests the unthinkable. Someone should try to reach the nearest settlement, 15 kilometers away, to get help. Everyone knows it's suicide, but everyone also knows that staying means slow death for all. Your father volunteers. Your mother argues against it, but without conviction. She knows there's no other option. April the 16th. Your father prepares to leave. He puts on every layer of clothing the family owns. He takes the last of the sheep meat, enough for maybe 3 days if he's careful. He carves a walking stick from a bench. Before he enters the tunnel, he gathers the family. He doesn't give a dramatic speech. He simply says, "If I don't return, you know what to do." You don't, actually, but you nod anyway. He climbs into the tunnel and doesn't look back. The days after your father leaves are the longest of your life. You have nothing to do but wait and preserve the little you have left. The fire burns so low you can barely see in the shelter. The cold seeps in, making sleep difficult despite exhaustion. Your mother becomes mechanical, moving through the tasks of survival without expression. Tend the fire, melt snow for water, distribute the ration of fish, sleep, wake, repeat. April 18th. You hear wind outside. A storm has come, one of the last of winter. You think of your father somewhere out there and try not to imagine the specifics. April 20th. The last of the fish is distributed. After this meal, there is nothing left. Your mother looks at you and your surviving siblings with an expression you've never seen before. It's not fear. It's not even sadness. It's acceptance. She begins to tell stories, not the heroic sagas, not the family histories. She tells stories about summer, about the sun on the grass, about swimming in the cold streams, about the taste of fresh berries, about the feeling of wool on your fingers when the sheep are healthy and the shearing goes well. She's preparing you to die. You understand this, but the stories are beautiful and you listen, and for a few hours the hunger fades and you're somewhere else, somewhere warm. April 22nd, morning. You wake to silence. The fire has gone out during the night. No one noticed. No one had the energy to tend it. In the complete darkness, you hear your mother's voice. Listen. You listen. At first, nothing. Then, a sound. Rhythmic. Repetitive. Dripping. Water is dripping somewhere in the shelter. The ice is melting. Your mother begins to laugh. It's a strange sound. Broken and hoarse, but genuine. The thaw, she says. The thaw has come. Within hours, you hear another sound. Voices. Shouting from outside. The entrance tunnel opens, and light, actual sunlight, pours in. Blinding after months of darkness. Figures enter. Your father, frost-bitten but alive, supported by two men from the neighboring settlement. They bring food, dried fish, bread, butter, cheese, enough to last until the ground thaws enough to plant. You survive. Your family survives. But 1 in 3 families in your settlement doesn't. Some lost everyone. Some lost just enough that they can't continue farming their land. The community is fundamentally weakened. Over the following years, you learn the scope of what happened. The winter of 1125 was the beginning of a climatic shift. The winters that follow are progressively harsher. Farms that sustained families for generations are abandoned. Settlements shrink. Some are abandoned entirely. The Vetheimer, that ingenious survival technology that allowed Vikings to thrive in an impossible land, becomes inadequate. It was built for 4-month winters. It cannot handle 6-month winters. It cannot handle a climate in fundamental transition. Some families adapt by emigrating. They leave Iceland for Greenland, or back to Norway, or further afield. Others adapt by changing their livelihood entirely, focusing on fishing rather than farming, on trade rather than self-sufficiency. But many simply fail. They die in the dark, underground, waiting for a spring that comes too late. The Vetheimer system had a fundamental flaw, one that wasn't visible when it worked but became obvious when it failed. It was an optimized solution to a specific problem. And optimized solutions are inherently fragile. The Vikings in Iceland developed incredible expertise at surviving 4-month Arctic winters in underground shelters. They refined every detail over generations. They achieved a kind of perfection within their niche. But perfection within a niche is a trap. It creates systems so specialized, so dependent on specific conditions, that they cannot adapt when those conditions change. The very optimization that made the Vetheimer so effective also made it vulnerable. A more flexible system, one that was slightly less efficient but more adaptable, might have survived the climate shift better. But the Vikings didn't build flexible systems, they built optimized ones. Because when you're facing death every winter, you don't plan for theoretical future scenarios. You solve the immediate problem with every resource and innovation available. And this is the deeper truth the Vetheimer reveals. Survival and sustainability are different things. Survival is about getting through the next winter. Sustainability is about being able to get through every winter, including winters you can't predict or imagine. The Vikings survived brilliantly. They survived winters that would have killed any other culture of their era. But their very success at survival prevented them from building sustainability. They became so good at one way of enduring that they lost the capacity to imagine alternatives. As you grow older, as you tend your own children through their first winters in the Vetheimer, you think about the deeper implications of the shelter. The darkness teaches you something about human nature. We are creatures of adaptation, yes, but also creatures of limitation. We build systems to protect ourselves from the world, and then those systems become our world. We cannot see beyond them. Your ancestors came to Iceland seeking freedom. Freedom from kings and crowding and the rigid hierarchies of Norway. They found a land where independence was possible, where a family could carve out their own future. But that freedom came with a price: isolation. And isolation made them dependent on their own resources in ways that people in more connected societies were not. When the climate shifted, a Norwegian farmer could trade with his neighbors, could move to a different valley, could access resources from a broader network. But an Icelandic Viking family living in splendid isolation had only what they had stored in the Vetterheimer. The underground shelter was both salvation and prison. It kept you alive, but it also locked you into a specific way of life, a specific place, a specific fragility. You begin to understand why some families chose to abandon the Vetterheimer entirely, why they left Iceland despite generations of family history there. Not because they were weak or uncommitted, but because they saw what you're seeing. A perfect solution to the wrong problem is still wrong. The world was changing, the climate was shifting, and clinging to the old ways, the optimized ways, the ways that worked for 5 generations, would eventually mean extinction. Adaptation requires the courage to abandon what works in favor of what might work better. Centuries later, the Vetterheimer has disappeared from Iceland. Some collapsed naturally, the timber rotting, the turf eroding, the earth reclaiming what was borrowed. Some were deliberately filled in, becoming folklore, stories told to children about how the ancestors lived. Archaeological excavations in the 20th and 21st centuries uncovered a few. They found the bones of families who didn't make it through the long dark. They found evidence of the sophisticated engineering, the careful resource management, the desperate final measures taken when supplies ran out. They found a way of life that worked until it didn't. And there's something profound in that. Something that echoes across time and applies to every human system we've ever built. We create solutions to problems. We refine those solutions through iteration and suffering until they become remarkably effective. We build our lives, our identities, our cultures around these solutions. They become invisible to us, as natural as breathing. And then the world changes. The climate shifts, the technology evolves, the economy transforms, the political order collapses, and our perfect solutions become obsolete, sometimes slowly, sometimes overnight. The question isn't whether this will happen. It will. It always does. The question is, will we have the wisdom to see it coming and the courage to adapt before it's too late? The Vikings in the Vetterheimer didn't have that luxury. Their climate change happened faster than their capacity to adapt their deeply ingrained survival systems. They had generations of expertise that suddenly became irrelevant. We face similar challenges today, though on different scales and with different specifics. We've built elaborate systems to sustain modern life: economic, technological, agricultural, social. These systems work brilliantly within certain parameters. They're optimized for the world as it has been. But the world is changing. The climate is shifting. The resources are depleting. The assumptions that undergirded our systems are being tested. And like the Vikings in their underground shelter, we face a choice. Do we double down on the systems that worked before, optimizing them further, making them more efficient at solving yesterday's problems? Or do we accept their limitations and build something new, something less perfected perhaps, but more adaptable? There's no easy answer, because adaptation is risky. The Vetterheimer worked. It saved lives for generations. Abandoning it for something unproven could have meant death, but so could staying. And this, perhaps, is the deepest truth the underground shelter teaches us. Security and flexibility are often in tension. The more we optimize for safety within known parameters, the less capable we become of handling the unknown. The Vikings who survived the climate transition weren't necessarily the ones with the best Vetterheimer. They were the ones willing to leave the Vetterheimer behind. When you're underground, in the dark, surrounded by the systems that have kept you alive, it takes tremendous courage to dig toward the light, to believe that there might be a different way, a better way, even when the old way still seems to work. But staying underground when the world above has changed means you're not surviving. You're just taking longer to die. The Wetterheimer stands as a monument to human ingenuity and human limitation. It shows us what we can achieve when we focus all our resources and intelligence on a single problem. It also shows us what we risk when we mistake a temporary solution for a permanent truth. In the end, the underground shelter asks us a question that every generation must answer for itself. When the darkness comes, do we dig deeper or do we search for the light? The Vikings found their answer. Slowly, painfully, with tremendous cost, they adapted. Some left, some changed how they lived. Some didn't survive the transition, but the culture persisted, transformed but alive. Now we face our own long dark, our own climate shift, our own moment when the optimized systems of the past must give way to the uncertain possibilities of the future. We have knowledge they lacked, technology they couldn't imagine, resources they would have considered magical. But we face the same fundamental challenge. Can we see beyond the shelter? Can we imagine life differently before we're forced to? Can we adapt by choice rather than crisis? The Wetterheimer can't answer those questions for us, but it can remind us that they matter, that the systems we build to protect ourselves can become the systems that trap us, that survival and sustainability require different kinds of wisdom, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave the shelter and face the winter, believing that even if you don't know how to survive it yet, you'll figure it out. Because humans always have. Not by being perfect, not by being invulnerable, but by being adaptable, by being willing to let go of what worked yesterday in pursuit of what might work tomorrow. The Vikings in the underground shelter teach us this final lesson. The darkness is real, the cold is real, the danger is real, but so is the light, waiting just beyond our current vision. And the choice between them is ours to make every single day.